Hey, welcome to the Jim Wolf Show. Today's guest is Patrick James, and he is America's Charisma Consultant for Men. So, hey, Patrick, how are you, dude?
Doing really good. How are you, Jim?
Great. So, we are interested today in your entrepreneurial journey. I know you from a couple of years ago. We're pretty good friends. And I know that before you quit what you were doing and started your own business, that you were actually in dental school. And so, in American society, like medical school, dental school, law school, things like that are seen as like kind of a super successful path. It's kind of like one of the definitions of success we have in society. And you kind of like left all that behind, or at least put it on hold to start your own business. And so I'm curious about that, Patrick. Why did you decide to do that, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, so for me, I always grew up thinking, okay, I have to go to college and I have to get a good job. And I think what ultimately made me the kind of person who wanted to start my own business is growing up, I've always had the belief that no matter what I do, I'm going to be successful at it. And I've always just kind of had that tenacity, that drive through sports and stuff growing up. However, I didn't have a whole lot of direction as far as a functioning human being in society. So I just went to college because the only thing I knew growing up was I wanted to play basketball in the NBA. And obviously, if I'm not going to the NBA from high school, got to go to college somewhere. So I went to a D1 university, not for basketball, but to hopefully walk on to play on the basketball team. And then eventually, long story short, that didn't work out. So when I turned about 2021, I realized, okay, well, I'm in college. Obviously, I'm going to get my degree because that's what Americans do. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, well, I could see myself being a doctor because, doctors make a lot of money. And I definitely want to make a lot of money. So that's the route I went. I prepared to go to medical school. And for medical school, towards the end of my college career, I took the MCAT already. The first on the medical school entrance application was why medicine? And, I'm really good at bullshitting people, bullshitting myself, but at the end of the day, did I really want to be a doctor who had a pager that ruled my life attached to my hip, and my income was run by insurance companies, and I would be up all the fucking time because I'm a doctor working overnight on call. I'd have to go to 8 more years of school. So I was like, okay, medicine maybe isn't for me because I couldn't answer that question. So I was like, well, what's the best thing given my circumstance? So I was like, okay, dentistry. Dentistry school is half as long as medical school, and they work on their own terms. They have their own business. So I was like, yeah, I want to be my own boss, right? So I went to dental school, got in pretty easily because I just, like I said, I had that tenacity. And then I got there, and I enjoyed the journey. So here's the thing. I enjoyed the journey, and we can get into this more. And so I learned to like biology. I learned to be really good at biology and be good at having my hand skills as a dentist. But then I got to dental school, and it was like the journey was over. I enjoyed the journey of getting there, but then it was like I already achieved what I wanted to. And now that I'm here and I'm not working towards anything anymore, I realized that I really don't have any passion for dentistry. And around that time, when I got into dental school, is the same time that I started getting really big in dating and improving myself and reading books. And I stopped watching TV, and I stopped watching the news, and I stopped hanging out with people that were bringing me down. So that was around the time I really got into personal development. And I realized, like, dude, if this is not my path, I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life if I stick to doing this when I really want to be doing the social stuff, the charisma stuff, the dating stuff. So at the time, I was faced with a big decision. Do I stay in dental school, pay $100,000 of student loans a year just to be in dental school, just to and work the next 30 years paying off $500,000 of debt as a dentist, or do I stop now, cut my losses while they're as fast as possible, and then go on to a path that I really want?
Hmm.
And I asked myself, well, what if that path doesn't work out? Is it worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And ultimately I decided yes. And it was basically because of a Steve Jobs quote that I read at the time I was reading his biography, and he said something interesting in that book. And that book, he basically said, every morning I'd wake up and I'd look in the mirror and I'd ask myself, Steve, if do I enjoy what I'm about to do today? Am I happy if this is my last day on earth? Am I happy with the plan that I have for today? And he said if there ever came a point where it was a lot of consecutive days where I answered, no, if today was my last day, I would not want to be doing what I'm doing today, then I would change something. That's how I knew I had to change something drastically. And so that really resonated with me because I didn't want to be in dental school. I dreaded going there, and I was looking forward to the time that I would get out of school so I could go out and work on myself. And it became a self-destructive thing because I wasn't sleeping, because you can only do so many things in 24 hours. So eventually I just quit. I reached a breaking point. So that was kind of my journey, and I set off onto this path of uncertainty. But as we all know, when you kind of force yourself to burn the boats, you make shit happen.
Definitely. So was that like a scary process for you, or just kind of do it? And like, how did your friends and family respond to that?
Yeah, dude, it was so fucking scary. But it was almost relieving, because what was even more scary to me was staying in school and doing something for the next 40, 50 years that I did not want to be doing. I mean, that's literally torture. I mean, you might as well kill yourself now, because you're just wasting your own life. You know, as far as I'm concerned, we only got one life to live. Even if I do somehow get reincarnated, it won't be me. You know, it'll be a different person's life, with my little fucking spirit thing in there. So I was just like, I want to make the most of this life that I possibly can. And if that means cutting my losses now and trying to make something happen while I'm in my 20s, then so be it. So when I reached that point, it was almost a relief. It was almost like I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. And that was probably the first time I cried in years. And I remember it was like 4 a.m. And so I went into the school the next day. I walked into the dean's office and I quit. And that was it. And definitely it was scary, but because I felt so relieved, I was super motivated. That gave me so much momentum going in. And yeah, I made a fucking shitload of mistakes in that first 6 months, 12 months, learned from each one of them. And I'm reaching a point now, literally there's a huge learning curve for me, to where I'm starting to figure shit out, and now I can strategically do something and have it work more often than not. Whereas before, I was just trying anything that might work, and sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. But the fact of the matter is I was still taking action, and I think that's what a lot of people fear, is that they think, well, if I burn the boats, if I stop this path that I've been told I need to do, then I don't know what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, if it really means that much to you, you're going to make something happen. Now, to answer your question, how did that affect my social life, my friends, my family? I was in a place where I don't hang out with any of the people I knew at the time, because just kind of the way it worked for me. When I moved to dental school, I made a whole new friends group because I moved halfway across the country for that. So all my friends were in dental school, and all of them want to be dentists, right? So when they found out that I don't want to be dentist, we just didn't click anymore. And I stopped hanging out with them because ultimately they didn't truly believe that I could tell from their vibe that they didn't truly believe in me. And if I truly want to maximize my chances for success, I can't tolerate any kind of those vibes going on in my environment. So it wasn't anything personal, but I just had to stop hanging out with those guys. And even though we could still be friends, if I ran into them at a bar to this day, we could have a great time. But they're just not people that I wanted to hang out with on a regular basis. And that's a lot of people aren't cut out for entrepreneurship because they can't deal with cutting people like that out of their life for the betterment of yourself. And same with family. Stepmom, stepsister, sisters, aunts, uncles, nobody really understood why I wanted to do what I was doing. They're like, dude, you're in dental school. Why are you throwing that away? And they don't understand that it was literally either kill myself, because that's basically what I'm doing if I'm wasting the next 40, 50 years of my life, or do what I actually want to be doing and give this life everything I fucking possibly have while I'm in my 20s, while I'm young enough to do so. So that's where I came from, and I definitely had to cut a lot of those relationships out. And that said, I was telling you before we hopped on this call, I have roommates now. I've never, ever, ever had roommates where I actually enjoyed being around those roommates. It was
Mm.
always, we got put together, we had a class together, we had mutual friends, and then we decided to live together or something. And I never really enjoyed having roommates. There was always passive aggressiveness. But because I had such a big drastic life change, it just gave me a clean slate moving forward. And I actually had to go out and I had to make friends, and I had to make friends by finding the circles that I actually did fit into, entrepreneurship circles, people who are also into personal development. And when I did that, I actually met these two guys at conferences and while I was out at bars. And like, I fucking love living here. Like, and that's just something that only happened because I made that big drastic change that most people are too afraid to make. And now I feel like my life is definitely more fulfilled moving forward than it would have been if I was still wasting my time away in a classroom.
Definitely. So, how long has it been since you made that decision, and what has that journey been like, kind of like after you left dental school?
Yeah, so it's been a little over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
That was September of 2015 when I dropped out of dental school. And in the first 6 months, I was grinding away. It was 15 hours a day for
Mm.
6 months, right? Not making a single dollar. I make a sale here or a sale there, but every sale went back into the business. So I was coming up negative still, because I still had to pay bills. I still had to keep a roof over my head and keep myself fed. Um, but that said, I loved every second of it. I was
Yeah.
learning every single day, and I was finally doing something on my own terms, which is I'm the unique kind of person who I'm going to hustle my ass off because I truly believe that I can be the best at whatever I choose to be the best at. And that's ultimately one trait of myself that makes me a great potential entrepreneur, future success story, whatever. Um, so that was the first 6 months. And then I reached a point where, okay, I've run out of savings. I have to drive Lyft at night just to kind of keep a steady income. So I was driving for Uber, driving for Lyft. Um, and then I had to get a job, and I got a job that was relevant to what I wanted to do. So I got a job in marketing and sales, and that was a full-time job. But here's the thing, because I needed a job, I made sure to get a job and something that was going to help my business. So I worked the job for a while, for about 5, 6 months, getting really good at sales, like really good at sales. And in that time, I was still working 16-hour days because I would work that job during the day, come home, grind away at my own business at night. But because I had all that sales experience during the day, I was that much more effective at night. So I'm always in a place of, no matter where I'm at, I'm still getting better. And I've closed more clients to bring on to my own client roster because of those sales skills. I've improved my copywriting skills because I had those sales skills. And I became a much better manager. I got so much better at managing my own time and productivity because I had to be successful at my own thing. So that's kind of been my journey in the last over a year doing this full time.
So it sounds like it's been a lot more difficult than your life before in dental school, but also a lot more rewarding and fulfilling. And so, do you think it's been worth it?
Oh yeah. I was thinking the other day, like, there's definitely those days where you wake up and you go, what the fuck am I doing with my life right now?
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally trying to start a business online using social media and email marketing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, that's as long shot as it possibly gets. But because it's something that I truly want to be doing, and it's something that honestly I told myself before I dropped out of dental school, if I could make enough money doing this just to keep a roof over my head, and still do this full time, I would do it. So essentially, I would do this and not profit. I would be happy, right? But because of that, I can reach a place where I'm always striving to be more successful because I love it so much. So there's nothing I would take back. I would never go back to dental school. I would never even go back to working jobs that I don't want to work, just to fit into society. That's just not who I am. I'm the kind of person who's a self-starter, and I'm so motivated to be the best at whatever I do, especially if I have a passion for doing it.
You know, that's so interesting because there's this idea out there of kind of like the instant success and like the 4 hour work week and like I'm going to quit this really hard job and do something easier or whatever. And it sounds to me like that's not really what this entrepreneurial journey is for you. It definitely hasn't been that way for me either. Like I have worked more starting my own business than I ever did working for someone else. However, to me, like it doesn't really feel like work. It feels like growth to me more than work. And so for me, like I've worked harder, but I've enjoyed it. And I think the idea is not necessarily this external idea of success that people have. That's kind of what they see in the beginning. But I think like it's more about how do you feel when you wake up? And like, do you really like yourself in your life? And like, are you enjoying what you're doing? Because for me, it's like if you're going to do something 5 days a week for 8 hours, you should probably at least enjoy it a little bit, if not a lot. And so I think it's interesting that you just said what you said because you haven't exactly like made it yet, and neither of us have like made it to the level where we see ourselves going in the next 5 years yet. We're in the process of going there, and we're making a lot of progress. But it's not like you quit your dental job and now you're a millionaire one day later. However, you still think it's worth it. And I think that's really interesting because the people who are there wondering if they should quit their job or not, they're kind of scared like, well, maybe I'm not going to make it. But what you're saying is even if you don't make it right away based on what society thinks of as making it, for you, it's still worth it and you would never regret it and you're never going to go back. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like when you say made it, that really just comes down to your own definition of success.
Yeah.
Like for me, I don't feel like I've made it because my aspirations are so fucking big that I'm nowhere close to me saying I've made it. But essentially, I have made it because in my roommate's definition, my roommate happens to be super into personal development and dating and working on himself, and he works a job that he hates. Now, he thinks that I've made it because I've quit my job to do what I actually want to do, to do what he still wants to. So that's something that he has to go through. So to him, it looks like I've made it. Right. To other people, it looks like I've made it because I'm sufficient. I'm keeping a roof over my head.
Yep.
I can eat. I can work out. I can live. I can go out and party, and I'm doing what I want to do. But in my own head, I'm still chasing what I really want, which is, I'm not going to get into the financial goals I have for myself, but it's definitely, I'm always working towards more. I feel definitely more fulfilled than I ever have.
Yeah, and I mean, really, it's about the journey. That's like super cliche, but it's true, right? Like, it's where you're headed, not where you are. And if you're not headed in the right direction, then I think you should probably think about making a change.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I was thinking the other day, life goes by so fast, man. Like, I'm 26 now, and I've been working since I was 16, and I've had so many jobs in so many different areas. I was a mover. I was a lifeguard. I worked in an office doing cold calling on the phone. I was a server. I've done a shitload of different things. And I can say that for sure, I cannot have a boss. That's not for me. I can't stand someone telling me what to do. And I never want to be on a fucking salary job with benefits and shit, or working hour to hour, because I want to be working on my terms when I want, where I want, with who I want. And like any job I've had, I wouldn't be able to affect, like basically you and I right now are doing our job. We're marketing, we're putting out content, we're giving value to our customers, to our client base, to our niche, to our followers. And that's our job. and this is awesome. I enjoy doing this, and I would never be able to do anything like this in any job I've ever had. So, like, you got to find what's right for you. And I think the people listening to this, maybe they've heard this idea, like you said, the 4-hour work week, making money while you sleep. And yeah, it's a cool idea, but it's not for everybody. Some people, for example, like my mom's an accountant, and she's a perfect stereotype for an accountant. She has to have everything in order, and she wants to be able to show up, do her thing, and leave, and never worry about anything like that
Yeah.
or above it and beyond that, right? So she's not the type of person who should be an entrepreneur ever.
Right.
And she wouldn't be successful as she was.
Right.
Because everybody has the role. I mean, it's just like a fucking beehive, right? There's worker bees, and then you got the queen bee. And worker bees, they're born because to be workers, right? And so there's definitely people who have to play their role in society, and your role in society is what you actually feel fulfilled doing. And my mom feels fulfilled being an accountant. So I wouldn't recommend everybody listening to this go into entrepreneurship and quit what you're doing to start your own business if you're not the kind of person who can do that. I know I'm the kind of person who can do that because I've always hated taking orders, and I've always been super motivated to do my own thing. And when I see a goal that I want, I become so obsessed that I'm willing to not sleep to do it. And that's the kind of person you got to be if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think right now kind of entrepreneurship is kind of glorified in our society, but again, like you said, it's definitely not for everyone. And the idea is not to be an entrepreneur. The idea is to do what you really want to do instead of what society or other people say you want to do.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I've never in my life been able to function at least like without like napping off like during the day on less than like 6 hours of sleep. But when I started doing entrepreneur, I'll go a month where I'm only sleeping 4 hours a night, but I'm cranking the whole time I'm awake. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't truly enjoy the process and enjoy what I was doing.
Absolutely. I think that's huge. Okay, so if you could go back and give yourself advice, like right when you quit dental school and you're starting your own thing, like what would you tell yourself then from what you've learned from that point to now?
I would say keep faith, because there's a lot of times where I definitely felt helpless, especially when you see that savings going down and
Yeah.
no return on any of your efforts. So I'd say keep the faith, almost like a fucking, Christopher Columbus sailing the sea. He's got full mast. His ship's got his sail up, and he's got the wind in his fucking sails, right? And he keeps going, and all he sees is open water. But he just keeps fucking going straight because he knows eventually that land's going to come up over the horizon, right? And, there's definitely points where all you see is open water for months, for years, right? And you don't know if you're ever going to see land, but if you just keep that faith, like eventually you're going to run into something, right? Eventually something's going to stick, and that's just kind of the mentality you got to keep moving forward. So that would be one thing. And another thing is I would say learn how to deal with any negative states that you might be in. There was a time, like even I teach like charisma and being the life of the party, but it's hard to do that in practice, especially when you have a business that's not working yet. So there's been times in the past where I couldn't go out in public and hang out with my friends without my own, worries about my own business, like leaking into that, to that situation.
Sure.
So I would say just like be better at hiding your weaknesses or hiding your insecurities, because as a leader, I think that's definitely a good trait, is to be able to be the kind of person who is resilient in times of uncertainty. And that's definitely things that I could have worked on in the past too. So I think it really just comes down to knowing that eventually, if you have a good idea, if there's definitely a market for what you want to do, just keep hustling, keep grinding, because that's ultimately what separates the people who succeed and who don't succeed is who's willing to put up with all that bullshit just to get to where they want to go.
I think that's awesome advice. And kind of how have you learned to manage those times of like when you're kind of down? Because entrepreneurship definitely comes with a lot of highs and lows. And so, how do you manage that now versus a year ago?
Yeah, so I would say a year ago, I would know I wanted to do all these different things, right? And I didn't really put a timeline on when that needed to get done. I would just know that needed to get done, and I had no clue how long it's going to take, right? So I would be working from the second I woke up all day to the second I go to sleep. And sometimes it'd be the second I wake up to all day to when I go out and hang out with friends, right? But because I never set a clear for the day, or I never set a deadline on when that needed to get done, or I didn't really have an idea of how long that was going to take me. I felt like I had all these open loops in my life, and I felt like that was leaching my energy, my charisma when I was going out, hanging out with friends and whatnot, or even hanging out with family on Thanksgiving, right? I can't even enjoy Thanksgiving dinner because I'm so into my own business.
Mm.
Um, so I would say on a day-to-day, they call it KPI, key performance indicators, right? I know I'm going to hit my goal if I'm hitting these little targets each day, right?
Yeah,
So I'd
yeah.
say break down all your goals into smaller targets. And that's one thing I didn't do for a majority of the first year that I started doing this. And that ultimately stole my energy because if I know that today I want to get done 3 emails, right, and 2 videos, that's a clear target that I can hit and work towards. But before, I was just like, okay, I need to get 1,000 followers, and I need to get all this shit done. I need to finish this project, but I didn't have those key indicators of like hit along the way. So I would go to sleep at night feeling like I was unaccomplished when really I'd accomplished so much. If that makes sense.
I agree with that a lot. I think breaking down your big vision into small actionable goals is huge. Not only do you feel like you accomplished something, you build momentum, right? And so all of a sudden that huge elephant is just a lot of small bites.
Exactly, exactly. And Ryan Tracy said, I first heard it in one of his books. It was called No Excuses, uh, The Power of Self-Discipline or something like that. And he talks about any goal, any big vision, when broken down into enough smaller goals, is attainable. So exactly what he said.
Definitely. All right, so what other advice do you have for people who want to possibly either quit their job or they're in school and they want to change their major or something like that? What advice do you have for people who want to make that change and specifically for new entrepreneurs?
I would say don't procrastinate, and not like on a day-to-day, like getting your shit done, but like on making that big choice. And you know what big choice I'm talking about. So for me, the big choice was, when am I going to drop out of dental school and do this thing that I want to do? And I would say a lot of people in my own life who see me doing my own thing and admire that, and they say they want to do similar things, similar business ventures, but they're procrastinating on it.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I learned was you have to set a D-day, right? You have to set that exact day, no matter where you're at, no matter how comfortable you are at the time. That's the day that you're going to make that decision to quit your job, to quit school, to take on this new venture full time. And so many people, rather than setting that D-Day for themselves, they're waiting for the feeling of, okay, now's the right time. Now's
Mm.
the right time. But here's the thing. That feeling is never going to come.
Yeah.
Just like if you're in a bar and I tell you to go approach a girl, you're going to feel uncomfortable doing it, and that feeling is never going to go away. You're never going to say, okay, the window of opportunity is open. I know every single pickup line in the world, and I know exactly what she's going to do when I go over there and say this. So now I'm going to go approach her. That's never going to happen, ever, right? Same with your life. If you want to stop your job, if you want to stop school, I don't recommend doing it tomorrow unless you realize tomorrow is the day it needs to be, right? So if you have no clue but you know that you want to stop your job, say, okay, on December 27th, I'm going to quit my job for sure, right? And so here's another thing I would add about the D-Day is I wouldn't make it 5 years out. I wouldn't make it 3 years out because you have you have no idea that you can achieve so much in 3 years, dude. I am a completely different person today than I was 3 years ago. Completely different. So much better because I work on myself, right? Um, and it's just like that quote, greatly underestimate what they can achieve. They greatly overestimate what they can achieve in a year, and they greatly underestimate what they can achieve in 5 years, right? That's Peter F. Drucker who said that. Same thing with this. If you're setting your D-Day out for 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 50 years from now, you're lying to yourself, dude. You're just procrastinating. You don't need any longer than 6 months for this D-Day. So I would say at the very most, set it for 6 months out from now and know that you got to get your shit together in the next 6 months. And no matter how you feel on that day 6 months from now, you're going to quit. But for me, when I realized I needed a D-Day, it was the next morning that I had to quit because I was already at the breaking point. So when I realized I needed that, when I had that paradigm shift in my head, I walked in the next morning and quit. So decide what day for you that is, and no matter how you feel, and regardless of what other people are saying at the time, that's your thing. You got to live your life on your own terms.
Definitely. And I'm glad you said that because for me, I set a date a couple of months away. And I did it in a way where I exited my former situation in a way that felt good to me. And that was important to me. But I knew I was going to do it. And so I set that date. And if I didn't do that, if I didn't have a specific day when I was going to leave, it would have been overwhelming and I would have never been able to do it because like the week before I did it, that's when I felt really afraid and scared. On the day that I actually quit, I felt really good and happy. It was like my birthday almost, a kind of a weird alternate reality because I had already felt the sharp, tremendous amount of like painful fear that you feel when you do something like this. And so because I already made the decision in my head, there's no possible way I'm not going to do it. I was able to go through that fear and still do it. But if you don't already have that in your mind, it's impossible to resist those feelings. So you're talking about approaching a woman or you want to quit your job or change your major, it's going to have a little bit of fear involved because we fear change. So you have to already make the decision. And then when you feel that fear, like you can get through it because you know that you're still going to do it. And so that gives you a lot more power. And that's the only reason I was able to leave. If I tried to do it like you, where I quit the next day, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it the way that you did just because of the way that I felt about the organization that I worked for. I really respect them and like them, and I wanted to go out on a high note. And so I would have had a lot of fears and a lot of thoughts that would have stopped me from doing what I really wanted to do. And so for me, making the decision already before that particular day happens was really important. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we could talk about this for hours and hours, but it all just comes down to, are you going to do it or not?
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this and you feel like you want to, you're at a place where you got to quit something because you really want to be doing this other thing, or you're not being fulfilled, you're in a dead-end job and you hate the routine and you feel drained every time you come home from work, something's got to change. And whether or not you know what that change is going to be yet, realize that you got to figure it out, and then you got to shit or get off the pot, right? Quit talking about that future day. Quit living in someday I'll, as Brian Tracy would say, and make that decision. Set that D-Day and get your life together, man. I'm not saying your life is not already together, but you got it. This is the only life you have, right? You got to get your shit together, live it on your own terms, because I think the ultimate tragedy is not someone who dies too young, but someone who lives a life that they don't want to live.
I agree with that completely. And listen, like Patrick and I both understand, like maybe you have kids or maybe you have some kind of situation that's different from ours. Patrick and I, neither of us have kids yet. And so maybe it's easier for us, for sure. We're not saying that, you can just immediately get rid of the income that you have and start your own thing. But you can definitely right now make a day that you know you're going to do it and start working towards that and start building up your thing now and start building up that new income that you need to support your family or whatever. And what we're saying is don't procrastinate on that. Set that in your mind because your mind will start to shoot for that. And the thing is, like, one of the top 5 regrets of people who are dying is that they lived the way everyone else thought they should instead of the way they wanted to. And we don't want you to be that person at the end of their life that regrets the way that they lived. And so I think even though, yes, you have to support your family if you're in that situation, it's also important to show your kids, in my opinion, that you should live the life that's true for you so they can follow your example. Because your kids are not going to do what you say, they're going to follow what you do. And so find a way to do your thing and support whatever lifestyle you want. And I think that's your message, Patrick, and mine as well. And yes, it's difficult, but it's so much better than living a life that's based on other people's terms.
Awesome. Well said.
All right, so Patrick James, where can people find you if they want to learn more and buy your awesome programs and all of that?
Hell yeah. So my programs are pretty exclusive. You can only get them if you are on my Swagger Social Tribe, as I like to call it. And the way you get there is you go to swaggersocial.com and you sign up for the free email newsletter, and then we can see how qualified you are for the Swagger Social Tribe from there. But I do have a few books. It's called Become Her Addiction. It's my first and best-selling dating ebook, really revolving around all those guys who run out of things to say with women. And not only do I tell you what exactly what to say and how to say it, but I also train your ability to come up with those words in the moment, moving forward with any girl and make her attracted to you. So that's one book I have. And then another book I have is called The Magnetic Personality Formula, and it's literally my handbook, my manual on how to be the most charismatic, confident, and courageous version of yourself. So if those are things that you value improving in your life, then I totally recommend joining the Swagger Social Tribe today. Like I said, that's at swaggersocial.com.
Right on. So definitely go to swaggersocial.com right after you finish listening to this episode. I will put a link below the video on YouTube and on my website. And Patrick James, thanks so much for coming on the Jim Wolf Show.
Hell yeah. I always love catching up with you, Jim.
Right on. Hey, me too, man. This is awesome. So thanks so much for listening to and watching the Jim Wolf Show. I'm your host, Jim Wolf, and this is
Patrick James.
And we will see you later. Thanks for checking out the Jim Wolf Show. For my best exclusive content, sign up for my awesome free newsletter at jamesdwolf.com. That's jamesdwolf.com. I'll see you there.